Hello everybody! Today we're continuing our discussion of the world-famous Vale. Vale is absolutely massive and can be overwhelming to navigate and plan for. I'm providing you this video to help you prepare for what you'll find on the Golden Peak side of the front side of the resort. This is just 1/5 of the episode, the whole of which will tell you everything you need to know about skiing at Vale. With that, let's continue in Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Vale. The furthest east of Vale's 4 base areas is Golden Peak, on the far left side of this trail map. Golden Peak itself doesn't have any public parking, but it's not too long of a walk from the Vale Village parking garage. If you're parking at the Vale Village parking garage on a peak day, I would highly recommend taking the extra couple minutes to walk over to Golden Peak and Rivabon instead of going to Vale Village and Gondola 1. If you want to get to the back bowls as quickly as possible, my recommendation would be going via Golden Peak. The other two routes, Gondola 1 to Mountaintop and Eaglebond to Game Creek, both have much longer lines than this method. This method is to take Rivabon to Northwoods. These lifts both get busy, but not as busy as the other two routes. We'll discuss Northwoods in a few minutes, but for now, let's talk about Rivabon. The Rivabon Express Quad, Chair 6, is my favorite way to get onto the mountain in the morning because it generally has the shortest lines of any publicly accessible base lift. It serves two purposes separately. From this mid-station, Rivabon offers access to all of this Golden Peak terrain, which is where all of the Vale terrain parks and racecourses are located. Additionally, there are these 3 blue groomers. They aren't my favorite to lap as they get quite icy, but at the end of the day I would readily take these over any of the other much busier runs. Unfortunately, you can't ski to them from the bottom of Northwoods or Highline. There is a method to access them, however, that we'll discuss in a minute. This Golden Peak T-bar is very rarely, if ever, open to the public. If it is open, you'll have access to a couple of short race courses or groomers. There's not much to talk about there. Down at the bottom, you've got Gopher Hill, which serves a bunny hill. As cool as it would be, this map does not show two 90-degree turns by Rivabon, but is rather just a poor attempt to display how Rivabon descends into a canyon before ascending into the top station. Now, because of this strange alignment, with Rivabon ascending to the mid, then descending and ascending again, you can ride it backwards from its top station to the mid station in order to access the Golden Peak runs. So say, for example, you were at Sourdough and wanted to get back to Vale Village. You could take Flapjack down, cut across right here, ride 6 this way to the mid station, and then unload and ski down Whippersnapper. This method gives you access to those Golden Peak runs that are way less busy than any of the other runs going down into the base, and with the 12-to-1 connector that we discussed in Part B, you can get back to Vale Village from them. So I would recommend trying to take these runs as your last run down if you want to avoid the disaster that is the Gondola 1 pod. Now, with the mid-station where it is, many people are tempted to unload at the mid-station and ski down to Highline. I would, however, highly recommend taking Rivabon all the way to the end. This little catwalk is super narrow and doesn't hold very good of snow. Even if you want to go to Highline, you can then take Choker, Log Chute, or Clickety Clack, all of which are much better than the catwalk. Whatever you guys do, regardless of where you're coming from or going to, try your very hardest to avoid Brisk Walk. I don't understand why anybody in their right mind would expect anything different, but Brisk Walk, surprisingly, requires a lot of pushing and skating. It does not connect to any other run until Riva Ridge. The Highline Express Quad, Chair 10, has always seemed like a bit of a hidden chairlift to me. A lot of people just don't know it's there or don't bother to check it out. And to be fair, it is a bit hard to notice the runs that go down to Highline if you're not looking for them. If you're actively seeking out these 3 runs, it's not hard to find them. Choker Cutoff is a bit of a road, but it's actually somewhat steep as far as roads go, hence why it's a blue. It can be found to the skiers right of the Northwoods Bottom Terminal. Log Chute and Clickety Clack are some great short mogul runs. I consider those two to be previews of what you'll get in the Highline pod. To access them, you'll have to go about 200 yards on the North Face catwalk, which originates from the skiers left of the Northwoods Bottom Terminal. Within the Highline pod are 3 runs. Blue Ox is a terrific long steep groomer. It's not a huge step up from a blue in my opinion. Highline is a super steep mogul run that often has saplings poking up through the surface of the snow. It's relatively mild in the top section, so don't get lulled into a stupor by it. It is a steep, difficult run and certainly earns its double black diamond designation. Rogers is my least favorite of the Highline runs, but it's still an alright mogul run. It just doesn't ever seem to have great snow, at least in my experience. Hairbag Alley I don't really consider to be in the Highline pod, but I'll discuss it here. Hairbag is a pretty difficult but super fun little gully through the woods. You better have quick reflexes if you're going to go down there. The Highline chair is a great alternative to Northwoods that people don't realize. When Northwoods gets overwhelmingly busy, which happens more often than anyone at Vail would like to admit, you can lap Highline instead, regardless of ability level. Green skier? Take North Face to Skid Road and lap Highline via Tin Pants or Flapjack. Intermediate skier? Take Joker and try lapping Blue Ox. And of course, Highline is an advanced skier's paradise. Of course, if you're a beginner skier, you're better off lapping somewhere other than Northwoods instead anyway. The best green pod by a large margin is served by the Sourdough Express Quad, Chair 14. This short detachable serves some wide green groomers. It doesn't typically get too busy at all, so it's a great step off for intermediate and advanced skiers and riders to get to the back bowls as well. It does take a little bit of a flat catwalk to get to Tin Pants and Flapjack, but you'll be rewarded with some empty runs if you push over to those two. As a whole, my advice for beginner skiers is to skip all of the other greens on the mountain and stick to Sourdough. A whole day itinerary for a beginner could be to ride Rivabon all the way up, head to Highline, take Flapjack, and then lap Sourdough, eat lunch at Two Elk. At the end of the day, take Flapjack to the top of Rivabon and ride that all the way down to the base. Also within this Sourdough pod is the short blue groomer Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack is a pain to access from Sourdough, so its primary purpose is to be the first part of shuttling skiers from chairs 36 and 9 to Two Elk. As it says on the trail map here, the fastest way to Two Elk from those two chairs is Whiskey Jack to Sourdough, otherwise you'll be stuck hiking along the ridge. You can access Whiskey Jack from Sourdough by taking an equipment road through the forest. If you're willing to traverse over to it, you'll most likely have Whiskey Jack to yourself because it seems like nobody goes down that run. So with all that wrapped up, we've come to what is, by far, the busiest lift on this side of the mountain, the Northwoods Express 6-pack, Chair 11. Chair 11 serves some great terrain, but sometimes its lines are just insane, and it's worth abandoning 11 to head to somewhere with lesser crowds. But if you want to wait it out, here's the Chair 11 terrain. Off the top, you'll have to take Timberline Catwalk to get to most runs in the Northwoods pod. When unloading the lift, if you take a hard left, you'll find yourself on the blue headwall of Timberline, which is designated very poorly on the trail map. If you're a green skier, you can ski pretty much straight ahead off of chairs 11 and 4, which will take you around behind in order to avoid that blue segment, which is very icy and crowded. Timberline Catwalk itself is a nice tranquil road through the forest. It has a relatively consistent pitch, but for some reason it seems much slower on the lower half, so I would recommend picking up some speed on the upper section. Diving off of the catwalk to the left are these two runs, of which Northwoods is the more consistently groomed. North Star also gets groomed sometimes, meaning it typically is either smooth or only has small moguls. All of these flow out onto the lower section of Flapjack, which is probably the busiest run in the entire resort aside from Swingsville, but it's wide enough to handle the traffic. Please actually obey the signs and go slow, because people on Flapjack make very sudden changes in pattern and will cut right in front of you. Closer to under the lift, you have First Step, The Rims, and Gandy Dancer. These are all nice mogul blacks that aren't crazy difficult, but are good practice at moguls. Off of North Rim and South Rim, however, there are a couple of large cliffs that you can send if you're the show-off under the lift type. To the looker's right of Northwoods, you have one of the few true double blacks at Vail, Prima. Prima is a double black for a reason. It's a long, steep mogul leg burner. But above all else, the biggest challenge with Prima is its length. Prima is not a trail to be underestimated. Think about how high you've ridden lifts above the base where you started at. Then imagine skiing a mogul run all the way down that vertical. That's Prima. If you do hit Prima, make sure you take Skid Road to Highline so you don't get stuck on Brisk Walk. I'm not really sure why this lower section of Prima is blue, because it has moguls just like the rest of it. Pronto is an escape from Prima, being a super steep short mogul drop-off back to Northwoods. But in reality, the Prima to Pronto route is almost as long as just taking Prima the whole way, so the only advantage is being able to get back to Chair 11. And of course, there's the infamous Prima Cornice. If I have to explain Prima Cornice to you, then you need to stay well away from it. That about wraps it up for the Golden Peak side of the mountain. Go ahead and check out parts A, B, D, and E right after this if you haven't already, which discuss the rest of the resort. Or go check out another episode of Insider's Guide. As always, please leave any questions down below. Thank you all for watching. All my love, I'm out.